Colleagues, welcome to the next series of the Right Before Profits webinars. We are, as you know, this is uh, the campaign. This is a part of a series of calls. This is uh, we will. Sorry, can I request people who are not speaking to mute their line? Yeah. So therefore, it's so welcome to the call. It's the first in the series. It's the not the first in the series. Uh, the campaign that this webinar series is part of is around issues of privatization and commercialization of public services, which is health and education. So therefore, it is nowhere more clear than during the time of the pandemic that despite the existence of regulatory frameworks, there is a continued tendency on the part of private providers, be they health or in education, to make profits during the time of the pandemic. So therefore, the focus of this episode is on the issues of regulation in the specific context of COVID. We have two speakers with us. We have who have done extensive work on this, both overall and also in the current scenario. We have Malini Aisola, who is the co-convener of the All India Drug Action Network, which is an independent network of non-government organizations working to increase access and improve the rational use of essential medicines. She is also part of the campaign for dignified and affordable healthcare and Himplant Patient Support Group. She has worked for Oxfam India in the past, so she's in some ways it's a welcome back for a while. She's been also a research officer in the Office of UN Special Rapporteur on the Right to Health and a senior research associate at the Knowledge Ecology International. We also have Amit Vivedi, who is an advocate based in Delhi. He works on the cases to make healthcare facilities available to all Indians. In April, he filed a plea in the Supreme Court to nationalize all healthcare facilities in India to contain COVID-19. He has worked at reputed law firms in India as an associate. He holds an LLM from the University of Delhi. So, in terms of framing, I guess that's over to you, Malini, to share your views and perspectives on this. So, Amit, over to you.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So I'm really thankful to Oxfam, to Angela ma'am for inviting me. I'm really thankful for Akshay for coordinating it so nicely. I'm thankful to Malini for being here and being a co-participant with me. तो जैसे कि एंजेला मैम ने कहा कि कॉमर्शलाइजेशन ऑफ हेल्थ केयर इज प्रॉब्लमेटिक, हेल्थ एजुकेशन दीज आर एसेंशियल्स, और इनका कॉमर्शलाइजेशन बहुत प्रॉब्लमेटिक है, और व्हाट वी हैव सीन ड्यूरिंग द पैंडेमिक इज समथिंग वेरी प्रॉब्लमेटिक. तो कम जून 2020 एंड दिस कंट्री वाज इन द मिड्स ऑफ पैंडेमिक, चीजें बहुत खराब होती जा रही थी. हमने अपनी पूरी कंट्री 3 महीने के लिए बंद की थी, बट देन वी रियलाइज दैट locking down things is not the permanent solution, and we tried to unlock things. And as we started unlocking, cases started to go up like anything. They skyrocketed. 9 जून 2020 को हिंदू में एक रिपोर्ट पब्लिश होती है, द हिंदू में. The headline read, COVID-19 admission only after payment of 4 to 8 lakhs. This report concerned Saroj Super Speciality Hospital of Delhi. That said that we will only admit a COVID patient once the patient gives us 4 lakh. If the patient is unable to give us this advance, then we won't admit this patient. उसके बाद सोशल मीडिया पे मैक्स हॉस्पिटल का एक रेट कार्ड वायरल हो गया. व्हाट वाज दैट रेट कार्ड? दिस रेट कार्ड वाज फॉर 1 day ट्रीटमेंट इन द आईसीयू विद वेंटिलेटर एंड द 1 day ट्रीटमेंट वाज ऑफ 72,550. 72,000 का एक दिन का ट्रीटमेंट था और उस ट्रीटमेंट में मेडिसिन, टेस्ट और कोमॉर्बिडिटीज इंक्लूडेड नहीं थे. यानी कि हॉस्पिटल में आईसीयू और वेंटिलेटर पे लिटाने बस का 75,000 रुपए आपसे मैक्स मांग रहा था. That went viral and people started discussing a lot of things. 12 जून को द हिंदू में रिपोर्ट आती है कि दिल्ली पुलिस के सब इंस्पेक्टर रामलाल भोगरे को एमजीएस सुपर स्पेशलिटी हॉस्पिटल पंजाबी बाग में एडमिशन नहीं मिल पाया डिस्पाइट ऑल द एफर्ट्स एंड ही डाइड. Pause for a minute and think. This gentleman was sub-inspector in Delhi police. He knew ACP, he knew DCP, he knew executive officials, he knew MLA, he knew MP. He could God have a call done from anyone. But despite all that, he could not get the admission in the private hospital. He died. इतनी बुरी कंडीशन हेल्थ केयर सिचुएशन की आई कैसे? Let us go back to what has been actually happening in India for all the while. Now, what India actually is. इंडिया इज अ लोअर मिडिल इनकम कंट्री. ठीक है, बहुत रईस रिसोर्सफुल कंट्री नहीं है. इस कंट्री, पहली बात तो हम बहुत रईस नहीं है. दूसरी बात, इनकम इनइक्वालिटी इज वेरी हाई. इनकम इनइक्वालिटी को गिनी कोफिशिएंट से मेजर करते हैं. फॉर इंडिया इट्स 37%, काफी हाई है. हमारा पर कैपिटा जो जीडीपी है वो ग्लोबल एवरेज से आधा है. ग्लोबल एवरेज है $18,000 और हमारा है $9,000. तो काफी बुरी स्थिति है हमारी. एक तो पैसा कम है और पैसा जितना है वो भी बराबरी से बटा नहीं है. रिसोर्सेज जो है दे आर वेरी अनइक्वली डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड. तो ये हमारी कंट्री की इन जनरल कंडीशन है. अब हेल्थ केयर सेक्टर पे आते हैं कि यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है. फॉर डिकेड्स आवर हेल्थ केयर एक्सपेंडिचर हैज रिमेन्ड वेरी लो. In 2020-21 health budget, we allocated only 1.6% of total expenditure on health. जो कंट्रीज हमारे कंपेरेबल हैं जैसे कि ब्राजील डेवलपिंग कंट्री है, साउथ अफ्रीका डेवलपिंग कंट्री है, उनका हेल्थ केयर पे एक्सपेंडिचर, पब्लिक एक्सपेंडिचर 4% है. यूएस का 8% है, यूके का 9.6% है. हमारा कितना है? 1.6%. इतनी बड़ी पॉपुलेशन है और हेल्थ केयर एक्सपेंडिचर इतना कम. ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ यूनियन ही हेल्थ पे एक्सपेंड करता है, स्टेट्स भी करते हैं. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के 7th शेड्यूल में जो लिस्ट 2 है वहां पे एंट्री नंबर 6 है, वो डिवाइड करती है भाई यूनियन का ये काम है, स्टेट का ये काम है और दोनों मिलकर ये काम करेंगे. तो सेकंड लिस्ट इज अबाउट के स्टेट का क्या काम है. द लिस्ट रीड्स पब्लिक हेल्थ एंड सैनिटेशन, हॉस्पिटल्स एंड डिस्पेंसरीज. इसके कॉम्प्लायंस में सारे स्टेट्स अपना हेल्थ बजट बनाते हैं. अब यहाँ भी वही हालत है, हेल्थ जो है वो प्रायोरिटी लिस्ट में है ही नहीं है, तो सारे स्टेट्स बहुत कम स्पेंड करते हैं. देयर आर फ्यू एक्सेप्शंस लाइक केरला. केरला स्पेंड्स अराउंड 5.1%, 5% स्पेंड करता है हेल्थ केयर पे. एंड ड्यूरिंग द पैंडेमिक वी कैन सी केरला वाज डूइंग रियली गुड. तो बट केरला जो करता है दैट इज एन एक्सेप्शन, इट्स नॉट अ रूल. रूल इज नॉट टू गिव प्रायोरिटी टू हेल्थ. तो ये हेल्थ केयर की कंडीशन हो गई इन जनरल. अब जब हम स्पेंड ही नहीं कर रहे हैं, कुछ सरकार कुछ स्पेंड ही नहीं कर रही है हेल्थ पे सफिशिएंटली, व्हाट इज द कॉन्सिक्वेंस? इसकी समस्या क्या है, इसका दुष्परिणाम क्या है? दुष्परिणाम है गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल्स आर लिटरली ब्रोकन. दे डोंट हैव इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. लैब्स नहीं है, एमआरआई मशीन नहीं है, अल्ट्रा साउंड की मशीन नहीं है, इक्विपमेंट्स नहीं है, स्टाफ नहीं है, डॉक्टर नहीं है, ट्रेन नर्स नहीं है, कंपाउंडर नहीं है, हॉस्पिटल में बेड्स नहीं है. अब इससे होता क्या है? होता ये है कि if a person gets ill, if a person needs neurosurgery, cardiovascular surgery, then if the person comes from a state like Bundelkhand from where I come, तो उसके पास कोई ऑप्शंस नहीं है, नियर बाई कहीं कुछ मिलने नहीं वाला. he will take a ट्रेन जनरल में एक टिकट कटा के he will come to दिल्ली और एम्स में आके लाइन में खड़ा हो जाएगा. तो फर्स्टली इन एम्स he might not get even a consultation, उसका नंबर ही नहीं आएगा लाइन में. अगर नंबर आ भी गया तो इमरजेंसी सिचुएशन में भी 6 महीने की तारीख मिलेगी, एमआरआई में भी 6 महीने की तारीख मिलेगी. तो बेसिकली अ पुअर पर्सन पेरिसेस इन द लाइंस ऑफ गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल्स. अब जो नेशनल हेल्थ प्रोफाइल है 2017 की, दैट सेज कि इंडिया में 70% लोग इस सिचुएशन से कंपेल होके गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल्स को छोड़ के प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल में इलाज कराने जाते हैं. अब जी ये प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स क्या है? प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स हैं, इनकी अपनी एक चेन है. ये एक स्तर पे एग्जिस्ट नहीं करते, दे आर मल्टी डायमेंशनल। एक छोटे गांव देहात में, टाउन में एक प्राइवेट प्रैक्टिशनर होगा, वो बैठा होगा 2-5 रुपए में कंसल्टेशन दे रहा होगा, दवाई वाले से कोई टाई अप होगा, उसके थ्रू काम चल रहा होगा। मिडिल टीयर सिटी जो है, सेकंड टीयर सिटी है, जैसे भोपाल है, वहां पे भी प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स हैं। भोपाल का चिरायू हॉस्पिटल काफी फेमस हो गया है, जिसमें सीएम चौहान कोविड पॉजिटिव होने के बाद गए थे। वहां पे गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल्स भी थे कोविड के, बट सीएम चोज प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल टू गेट ट्रीटेड। और उसके बाद आते हैं मेट्रोपोलिसिस में 5 स्टार प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स लाइक फोर्टिस, मेदांता, वी ऑल नो अबाउट देम, ठीक है। अब ये प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स बनते कैसे हैं? ये प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स को बनाने के लिए बहुत जमीन चाहिए पड़ती है। ये जमीन देती है इन्हें सरकार। सरकार इन्हें हाईली सब्सिडाइज्ड प्राइसेस पे जमीन देती है। ये बहुत बड़ा पब्लिक नॉलेज है कि जमीन इन्हें डस्ट प्राइसेस पे मिलती है, ठीक है। जमीन मिल गई सस्ती, उसके बाद जो इन्हें इन्हें इक्विपमेंट्स मंगाने होते हैं, चीजें मंगाने होती हैं, उन पे इन्हें टैक्स एग्जम्पशन मिलता है, ड्यूटी एग्जम्पशन मिलता है, ठीक है। उसके बाद में गवर्नमेंट इनसे एक एश्योरेंस लेती है कि यू विल ट्रीट पुअर पीपल फ्री ऑफ द कॉस्ट, और ये हंसते हंसते वो एश्योरेंस देते हैं, बट दे फॉलो दैट एश्योरेंस ओनली इन ब्रीच, दे नेवर रिस्पेक्ट दैट एश्योरेंस, ठीक है। ये प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स की हालत है। प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स बहुत ज्यादा महंगे हैं, इसलिए वो मेजोरिटी ऑफ द कंट्री के लिए 130 करोड़ की आबादी में 120 करोड़ की आबादी के लिए दीज प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स आर प्रोहिबिटिवली एक्सपेंसिव। गरीब आदमी जाने की दम नहीं करता, मिडिल क्लास जाता है तो उसको आउट ऑफ पॉकेट एक्सपेंडिचर करना पड़ता है। उस एक्सपेंडिचर से मिडिल क्लास आदमी लोअर मिडिल क्लास हो जाता है, लोअर मिडिल क्लास आदमी लोअर क्लास में चला जाता है, यानी इंसान जिंदगी भर के लिए बर्बाद हो जाता है एक प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल के ट्रीटमेंट के लिए। अब ये प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स काम कैसे कर रहे हैं इंडिया में? कॉमन आदमी तो उन्हें अप्रोच कर नहीं पा रहा है, तो बेसिकली दे इंडल्ज इन समथिंग कॉल्ड मेडिकल टूरिज्म। 2018 में इंडिया ने 5 लाख टूरिस्ट वीजा इशू किए थे कि भाई इंडिया में आओ बाहर के लोग, फॉरेनर्स, एंड गेट देमसेल्व्स ट्रीटेड। तो प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स उन्हें ट्रीट करते हैं, अच्छा खासा पैसा भी ले लेते हैं, और वो ट्रीटमेंट करा के चले भी जाते हैं। In 2020, this industry of medical tourism is of 9 billion. That's a very significant amount. In a time when we can't get our people treated, we are treating foreigners at an expensive price. Coming back to the pandemic, अब जब पैंडेमिक में ये स्थिति आ गई कि भाई गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल्स काम नहीं कर रहे हैं, इलाज होगा तो प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स में होगा। आपके दिल्ली के हेल्थ मिनिस्टर गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल में भर्ती हुए कोविड होने के बाद, ही वेंट टू प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल। ऑनरेबल हेल्थ होम मिनिस्टर गॉट कोविड पॉजिटिव, ही वेंट टू मेदांता। संबित पात्रा, स्पोक्स पर्सन ऑफ बीजेपी, गॉट इल, ही वेंट टू मेदांता। सारे पॉलिटिशियंस प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल में इलाज कराने गए, बिकॉज एवरीवन न्यू कि गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल्स आर नॉट वर्किंग। अब इस सिनेरियो में पब्लिक आउटक्राई होनी चालू हुई, जनता ने आवाज उठाई। मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया ने इसे कवर नहीं किया, क्योंकि कॉर्पोरेट इंटरेस्ट जो है वो कोलाइड करते हैं। जो लोग हेल्थ केयर चलाते हैं वो बहुत बड़े, उनके पास फाइनेंशियल पावर है, तो मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया ने इसे कवर नहीं किया। पर पब्लिक आउटक्राई हुई, लोगों ने एमपी से क्वेश्चन पूछे, एमएलए से क्वेश्चन पूछे, सीएम से क्वेश्चन पूछे, यहाँ तक पीएम के पास भी क्वेश्चन गए, तो कुछ ग्राउंड पे असर होना शुरू हुआ। 22 मई 2020 को महाराष्ट्र ने कैपिंग की प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स की। अब कैपिंग क्या है? कैपिंग का मतलब ये है कि सरकार कह देगी कि 10,000 से ज्यादा इस पर्टिकुलर ट्रीटमेंट के आप पैसे नहीं ले सकते। गवर्नमेंट डिसाइड्स अ अपर लिमिट ऑफ द अमाउंट विच कैन बी चार्ज फ्रॉम अ पेशेंट। फिर ये फॉलो किया गया तेलंगाना गवर्नमेंट के द्वारा। ऑन 15 जून 2020 तेलंगाना गवर्नमेंट कैप्ड प्राइसेस ऑफ प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स। अब दिल्ली में लॉकडाउन के बाद जून के दूसरे हफ्ते में केसेस वर ग्रोइंग लाइक एनीथिंग, एवरीवन वाज स्कैर्ड। आई माई सेल्फ लिव इन दिल्ली एंड एवरीवन वाज स्कैर्ड। अब ऐसी सिचुएशन में क्या करें? अब ऐसी सिचुएशन में वीके पॉल कमेटी बनाई गई, जिसने रिकमेंड किया कि आप हॉस्पिटल्स के प्राइस कैप कीजिए एज सून एज पॉसिबल। तो दिल्ली की डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट कमेटी ने 20 जून को ऑर्डर निकाला और कहा कि भाई प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स के प्राइसेस कैप कर दिए। जो हाईएस्ट प्राइस होगा वो होगा 18,000 रुपए का। एक दिन के लिए आप आईसीयू में जाइए, वेंटिलेटर पे रहिए, आपसे 18,000 से ज्यादा रुपए नहीं ले सकते प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स। And that 18,000, the maximum charge will include PPE, will include nursing, will include food, will include consultation, will include treatment of comorbidity। तो ये हुआ एग्जीक्यूटिव फ्रंट पे। अब जब क्राइसिस कंट्री के सामने आई, पैंडेमिक हो रही है, तो ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ एक तरफ से ये फंड बनाए जाएंगे। ये एफर्ट किए हमारे एग्जीक्यूटिव ने, कुछ एफर्ट हमारे जुडिशरी की तरफ से भी हुए। A lot of public spirited individuals, lawyers, organizations, they went to Honorable Supreme Court और उन्होंने वहां पे आवाज लगाई। जैसे कि इनिशियली गवर्नमेंट ने कहा था मार्च के दूसरे हफ्ते में कि गवर्नमेंट इज कैपेबल टू कंट्रोल कोविड। 2 हफ्ते बाद गवर्नमेंट ने कहा भाई टेस्टिंग हमारी कम पड़ रही है, अब हम प्राइवेट प्लेयर से टेस्टिंग भी कराएंगे, और उसका प्राइस तय हुआ 5,000। एक वकील साहब हैं शंकर देव, दिस ही थिंक के भाई 5,000 इंडिया में एवरीवन कांट अफोर्ड दिस हाई प्राइस ऑफ टेस्टिंग। तो उन्होंने एक पीआईएल फाइल की, दैट इज रिट पिटीशन सिविल 912 ऑफ 2020। उन्होंने उस पिटीशन में कहा जी आप कोविड के टेस्ट को फ्री कर दीजिए। 8 अप्रैल 2020 को ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट मेड कोविड टेस्टिंग फ्री ऑल ओवर द इंडिया। 13 अप्रैल तक वहां काफी सारी पिटीशंस पहुंच गई प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स और लैब्स की, और 13 तारीख को ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट को इसको चेंज करना पड़ा ऑर्डर, और कहा कि भाई जैसे कि गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने कह दिया है कि प्रधानमंत्री जन आरोग्य योजना कवर करेगी ट्रीटमेंट, कोविड के ट्रीटमेंट को, तो एक ये सहूलियत हो गई। दूसरा, हम गवर्नमेंट से रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि विद इन अ वीक जो प्रधानमंत्री जन आरोग्य योजना के बेनिफिशियरी हैं जो सिर्फ 50 करोड़ हैं, उसको एक्सपेंड करने की कोशिश करे गवर्नमेंट, ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को बेनिफिशियरी बनाए ताकि लोग इसका फायदा उठा सकें। तो ये एक पिटीशन हो गई। दूसरी पिटीशन जो डाली गई वो डाली एडवोकेट सचिन जैन वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया, रिट पिटीशन 863 ऑफ 2020। इन दिस पिटीशन सचिन जैन annexed prices and bills of private hospitals and requested the honorable supreme court in this pandemic private hospitals rather than being helpful and compassionate towards the country, they are exploiting the situation. They are taking huge prices from the people, their prices are inflated, and on 30th April honorable supreme court issued notice on this petition. Replies were filed, interventions were filed. Malini's organization also filed intervention application, that is a commendable work. 14 जुलाई को ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा कि सारे देश में एक जैसी प्राइसिंग नहीं कर सकते हैं हम, बट वी बिलीव कि कुछ कंट्रोल चाहिए है, और वी आस्क सारे पेटिशनर्स को गवर्नमेंट के साथ मिलकर एक चर्चा करके कोई एक रास्ता निकाले, एंड अब ये केस फाइनल हियरिंग के लिए लगा है। तो ये ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट की तरफ से जो डायरेक्शन वगैरह आए हैं ये है। अब बात आती है कि फर्स्टली वी आर स्टिल इन द पेंडेमिक। आज इंडिया में 3 मिलियन केसेस हो गए हैं, 30 लाख केसेस एक्टिव जो अब तक लोग इन्फेक्ट हुए हैं वो हैं। तो अब इस सिचुएशन में सॉल्यूशन क्या है, इस पेंडेमिक में सॉल्यूशन क्या है और लॉन्ग टर्म में सॉल्यूशन क्या है? तो आई बिलीव इन अ पुअर कंट्री लाइक इंडिया देयर शैल बी a very big debate on nationalization of healthcare. In a country like India, when you don't have resources, people are poor, inequality is so high, only few people have resources, we need to debate who shall control institutes which protect human life. अस्पताल लोगों की जान बचाते हैं, अस्पताल नहीं होंगे तो लोगों की जान नहीं बचेगी। इस तरीके के इंस्टीट्यूट को कंट्रोल करना, प्राइवेट प्लेयर्स के हाथों में देना, who think only profit is their aim, is it right, is it ethical, is it as per the mandate of constitutions which talks about justice in terms of social justice, economic justice, political justice? तो इस बात पे ओपन डिबेट होनी चाहिए कि भाई डू वी नीड नेशनलाइजेशन ऑफ हेल्थ केयर और नॉट। दूसरी बात, ये डिबेटेबल है। दूसरी बात जो काफी इंपॉर्टेंट है वो है वी नीड स्पेंड मोर ऑन हेल्थ केयर। जो हमारा हेल्थ केयर का एक्सपेंडिचर है दैट हैज टू ग्रो। पोस्ट जीएसटी सारे टैक्सेस, सारे फंड्स लगभग यूनियन के पास आ गए हैं, एंड यूनियन गवर्नमेंट हैज टू डिसाइड, इट हैज टू स्पेंड मोर। जीडीपी का 1.6% बजट का एक्सपेंड करके कुछ नहीं होगा। वी नीड टू स्पेंड एटलीस्ट 6 to 10% as soon as possible. Or as of now we have private hospitals. The elephant is in the room and we need to address it. नेशनलाइजेशन होगा नहीं होगा दैट इज डिबेटेबल। अभी हमारे सामने प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स हैं। ये प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स क्रिएट ऐसे हुए हैं क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट हैज हेल्प देम, गवर्नमेंट हैज गिवन देम टैक्स पेयर्स रिसोर्सेज, टैक्स पेयर्स मनी, गवर्नमेंट हैज गिवन देम पब्लिक लैंड, दे हैव social obligations. Private hospital have social obligation and they will have to do something for the society. जो 25% की कैपिंग लगाते हैं इन पे कि आपको 25% हॉस्पिटल के बेड्स गरीब लोगों के लिए रिजर्व करने हैं, दैट हैज टू बी फॉलोड। इसके लिए एक डेडिकेटेड ऑफिसर बनाना पड़ेगा, हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट की एक लिंक बनानी पड़ेगी, एक कंपेन पोर्टल बनाना पड़ेगा, एंड दैट हैज टू बी इंप्लीमेंटेड। दिस इज फर्स्ट थिंग। सेकंड थिंग इज प्राइस कैपिंग इवन इन द पीस टाइम। कुछ भी चार्ज कर रहे हैं, न्यूरो सर्जरी के लिए 5 लाख ले लेते हैं, कार्डियो सर्जरी के लिए 20 लाख ले लेते हैं. They can't do it. They can't simply do it. The doctors who are doing these surgeries, they have studied in government institutes, they have studied in public institutes, subsidized education receive की है इन लोगों ने, subsidized land पे ये प्राइवेट अस्पताल बनाए. 20 लाख कैसे ले सकते हैं? तो नेशन वाइड प्राइस कैपिंग चाहिए प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स की. तो प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स को हमें सोशली अकाउंटेबल बनाना चाहिए. और हमारा लास्ट ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या होना चाहिए? दीज आर ओनली द मीन्स. व्हाट इज आवर एंड? एंड इज यूनिवर्सल हेल्थ केयर. व्हाट इज यूनिवर्सल हेल्थ केयर? यूनिवर्सल हेल्थ केयर इज अफोर्डेबल हेल्थ केयर फैसिलिटीज टू ऑल. टू ऑल. वो क्वालिटी हेल्थ केयर फैसिलिटीज होंगी, अफोर्डेबल होंगी एंड टू ऑल होंगी. अब इससे होगा क्या? such policy will result in distributive nature. इसका एक डिस्ट्रीब्यूटिव इफेक्ट होता है, इनइक्वालिटी दूर होती है सोसाइटी में. इट्स लाइक डायरेक्ट कैश ट्रांसफर. गरीब आदमी का भला होता है, आपकी जनरेशन बेहतर हो जाती हैं. और एक अनइक्वल सोसाइटी में जब आपके पास यूनिवर्सल हेल्थ केयर होती है तो इट्स अ वेरी हाई चांस कि आपकी सोसाइटी में इक्वालिटी आए. एंड इन एन अनइक्वल सोसाइटी लाइक इंडिया यू नीड इक्वालिटी. मैंने बात इनिशियली की थी कि इंडिया इकोनॉमिकली ना तो रिसोर्सफुल है और इकोनॉमिकल इनइक्वालिटी है. बट इंडिया की इनइक्वालिटी का डायमेंशन सिर्फ यहाँ खत्म नहीं होता. इंडियन इनइक्वालिटी हैज सोशल डायमेंशन, caste based, religion based, gender based. It has educational dimension. So we can fairly say that India is a very unequal society, resourceless and unequal society. और ऐसी सोसाइटी में यूनिवर्सल हेल्थ केयर इज नॉट एन ऑप्शन. इट इज समथिंग विच यू शैल बी डूइंग. अब सॉल्यूशंस हमारे सामने है. हेल्थ केयर का एक्सपेंडिचर बढ़ाओ, प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स को अकाउंटेबल बनाओ, एंड अबव ऑल देयर शैल बी अ डिबेट, देयर शैल बी अवेयरनेस एंड पीपल. हर गांव-गांव ये खबर होनी चाहिए, अखबारों में आना चाहिए, टीवी में आना चाहिए, एडवर्टाइजमेंट आना चाहिए कि प्राइवेट अस्पताल में गरीब आदमी का फ्री इलाज होगा. इफ यू डोंट गेट फ्री ट्रीटमेंट देन कॉल इन दिस नंबर, make a helpline, but do something. We need to do something. We need to address it. It's about life, right to life of people. Constitution is full with provisions. प्रियम्बल में लिखा है कि हमें जस्टिस चाहिए सोसाइटी में. आर्टिकल 47 कहता है कि स्टेट शैल हैव प्राइमरी रिस्पांसिबिलिटी ऑफ इंप्रूविंग पब्लिक हेल्थ. आर्टिकल 37 है, 38 है, 39 है. दे टॉक अबाउट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ इकोनॉमिकल रिसोर्सेस. सोसाइटी को जस्ट बनाने की कोशिश है. समथिंग एज बेसिक एज हेल्थ, कि इंसान स्वस्थ रहे, इंसान को बीमारी हो उसका इलाज हो जाए बिना किसी दिक्कत के. समथिंग एज बेसिक एज दिस रिक्वायर्स सम अटेंशन, रिक्वायर्स सम डिबेट. पैंडेमिक ने इस सिचुएशन को सबके सामने ला दिया, बट इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि दिस प्रॉब्लम इज ओनली फॉर पैंडेमिक. दिस सिचुएशन हैज बीन existing for long. It has been here, but all the problem is we don't debate it. एक इंसान को दिक्कत होती है, वो पर्सनली उस दिक्कत को लेता है, फेस करता है और अकेले जाके बैठ जाता है. In pandemic, all felt vulnerable, all felt insecure, and people have come together. And when people have come together, we need to make sure that something comes out of this effort. कुछ निकल के आए, कुछ पॉलिसीज बने जो जनता को मदद करें और सबको फ्री में हेल्थ केयर मिल पाए. This is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
So, Malini, back to you.
So thank you very much. I think that was a great background that Amit has given. And so I'm just going to be adding and complementing really what he has, spoken about. So I'm just going to be speaking about regulating private hospitals. So I'm going to be talking about regulating private hospitals during the pandemic and beyond. Really, just before I start, I'm just going to be presenting some perspectives and observations based also on the experience of what we have observed during over the last few months. And in this context, I just want to acknowledge several of my colleagues who have been working tirelessly on these issues. Their names are on the slide, and many more people who I have not been able to mention their names specifically. They include our team of lawyers, several unnamed healthcare professionals and members of the public. But most importantly, I want to acknowledge the struggles of numerous families and patients, because it is really through their experiences that we have learned the most. And I think that's yeah. So just an overview of what I'm going to be speaking about. I'm just going to basically do this presentation in 3 parts. The first is just to present a little bit about the responses of private hospitals during the pandemic. The second relates to the approaches of different governments to increasing access and affordability to COVID treatment. And the third is really discussing some suggestions for how to build solutions that last beyond the pandemic. So in relation to the response of private hospitals, really prior to COVID, there was this backdrop that we can't ignore, where there was very high dependency of on private hospitals to access healthcare. So by some estimates, it's it varies, but roughly about 70%. And this dependency is clearly much more so in urban areas. So that includes also the metro cities. But interestingly, during the pandemic, particularly during the early phase, we saw that this pattern has been reversed, and government hospitals were doing the heavy lifting. So as the infection has spread and it has affected more states and more areas of the country, the public health system has clearly been overstretched and overwhelmed, and thereby, seeking care in the private private hospitals is no longer a choice. It's also important because many of these hospitals really have the advanced critical care facilities and skilled manpower that was sorely needed during the pandemic, particularly for patients who have comorbidities or who suffer complications and more severe manifestations of the disease. And private hospitals really, you can characterize their response by the complete lack of constructive engagement. So firstly, they have acted very responsibly towards patients. They have really treated the pandemic as open sanction for looting. And claiming, their excuse has been that they have been claiming losses in revenues, and therefore they have tried to exploit patients and indulge in fleecing of the COVID patients and other patients who were approaching them. Now, the loss in revenues relates obviously to their claims that there has been a reduction in footfall due to lockdown restrictions, and also due to the lack of medical tourism. Some of these points Amit had mentioned as well. But the claims don't exactly pan out, because we have still seen that the hospitals remain highly profitable even during this period. And I can give you the example of Max Healthcare that recently came out in public and shared this information. And another thing is that even prior to the pandemic, there were very well recognized trends of profiteering. The National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority, for example, had in February of 2018 done an analysis of the bills of 4 prominent corporate hospitals, and found shocking margins of more than even 1700% for various drugs and consumables. And so this seems to have continued even during the pandemic, but some evidence even suggests that it has intensified. And of course, news media reports are replete with accounts of overcharging. The range of violations, rather than discuss any specific cases, what I will do is I'm just going to use the framework of various rights that we recognize patients to have. And so these are just some of the areas where private hospitals have clearly violated patients' rights. So the first relates to access to records and reports. So while patients are admitted for COVID treatment, they are often not being given access to these records and reports. Often we've dealt with families where they've been told they will only receive a discharge summary at the time of discharge. Another big issue has been receiving detailed bills. So while the hospital continuously chases up the family to keep depositing money, very often we see that they are not providing adequate details about what exactly the charges are and providing those detailed provisional bills. Obviously, we've seen many instances of lack of informed consent taken when administering of treatments, particularly, we've seen some cases where experimental treatments, in almost all the cases where we have seen experimental treatments being administered for COVID, no informed consent is being taken. So this is really a rampant practice. And also to inform, in some cases when states have initiated some kinds of regulation, there is a requirement where the hospital, in case it wants to bill at the hospital rates has to take an informed consent from the patient. And here again, we are seeing that that has been violated, or yeah. Then the next point is related to, of course, the lack of access to reports and records. If you don't have access to your own records and reports, then you are, necessarily crippled in terms of being able to get a second opinion, even when the patient is particularly is very critical, and the family would like to reach out to other doctors. Then, of course, in terms of displaying the rates of the hospital and policies that dictate what any subsidies or free treatment, there has not been this kind of transparency. And we've seen many instances also of medical hostage taking. So these are instances where, because the patient has not been able to fulfill the bill, the family is not they are denied a discharge, or they're being held back in the hospital. And this is not just limited to admitted patients, but also in cases of when the patient might have expired and the hospital is refusing to hand over the body to the family. And lastly, of course, we've seen ethical violations when it comes to patients that are enrolled in clinical trials because they are not properly consented, and often the trials are also lacking in terms of the design. So design of a trial which couldn't possibly add much in terms of expanding knowledge about the drug, but patients are still being used as guinea pigs. So this brings me to the second kind of aspect of the private hospitals and what they have been doing. And this really relates more in terms more to the hospital associations. So they have been involved in subverting state government's attempts to enlist private hospitals on reasonable terms. And this has happened through intense lobbying by associations like the Nat Health, FICCI, AHPI, and also their state level organizations, which have been used to actively obstruct and undermine regulation, including through initiating litigation. And this kind of unprecedented organizing on behalf of the hospital associations is linked very clearly towards an attempt to prevent any kind of spillover effect of the kind of regulation we've been seeing in COVID to a post-COVID scenario. So now I'm going to move into a little bit of what we have observed in terms of different states and their attempts to expand access and affordability to COVID treatment. Unfortunately, we have not seen many states. I think you'd be hard pressed to find really good examples where states have just adopted an approach of universal free treatment, which was actually very much needed during a health emergency. So given that that really hasn't taken place, most states have actually adopted a mix of approaches. So the first aspect of that approach would be provision of free treatment under state-funded insurance schemes. Which in some instances, if the state has adopted the Ayushman Bharat scheme, that would also be included. And the issue here is that the limited scope of those schemes, which covers either covers a limited section of society. There is also issues related to low empanelment of the larger corporate hospitals and tertiary care facilities that are already involved in offering COVID treatment, and also low numbers of claims. And in the case of Ayushman Bharat, of course, the coverage is only 5 lakhs per family, which you could run out of very fast. So really the conclusion is that these schemes have failed to provide adequate financial risk protection, particularly to the people who were the most vulnerable and needed it. Another one, I think, which Amit has covered in some detail is related to free treatment that is mandated in several states through rules where private hospitals that have received land concessions have to provide on a certain percentage of the beds. And we can see these kinds of policies that are there in Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, and so forth. And then really the third point is what I'm going to stress on a little bit more, which is that to complement free treatment, the states have also come up with policies to requisition the capacity in private hospitals and then combine that with treatment rate caps. So this is really direct rate regulation. And I'm not going to get into it because Amit has already mentioned there is a case in the Supreme Court in which IDAN and Jan Swasthya Abhiyan Mumbai, two civil society organizations, are also impleaded. This is an ongoing matter, Sachin Jain versus Union of India. And really all I can say is that this case was filed in April. It's been more than 4 months now. And during that period of time, one positive outcome was, states have received a little bit of goading through the central government via a letter that was sent on the 15th of June by the Health Secretary, encouraging states to go in for rate capping. And after this letter was sent, we did see that there were no more number of states that were doing this. The issue here now is that often these rate capping policies are poorly designed and they're plagued by various loopholes, ambiguities, and issues. I won't get into details because there's not enough time for that. But basically, the way that these rate capping policies go is that the states would stipulate a per day rate for different categories of beds, and these are commonly a certain rate that is per day rate, maximum rate that is fixed for, say, an isolation ward bed or an ICU bed with ventilator support or an ICU bed without ventilator support. So broadly there are 3 to 4 categories, but there is a lot of variation. So for example, in Maharashtra, they have fixed certain daily caps, but there are a huge number of exclusions. So there are all kinds of critical elements and components of healthcare which are excluded from these caps. So for example, the cost of PPE, high-end medicines, interventions and procedures, high-end investigations, the cost of a COVID RT-PCR test, and so forth. So, but then when you compare that to, say, state like Delhi, actually the rate covers a lot of these elements and it's included within that rate cap. Another area where there is a lot of variation relates to the coverage, which is limited to a certain percentage of the total hospital beds. Of course, this has been raised by us as an issue that is discriminatory. So some states have, decided to apply these rate caps on, say, 80% of the beds. In Maharashtra, for example, in Delhi, it would be 60%, in Karnataka, it's 50%, and so forth. So different states have done it different ways. But it's fundamentally discriminatory because it creates two different classes of people who might have be in a similar position, but one person who would get the benefit of the subsidized rate and the other that has to pay full price of the hospital. Another interesting thing is that which we have observed is that alongside the orders, states have not gone so far as to think out a grievance redressal system and put it in place at the time that they are issuing these orders. So if they exist at all, it is always an afterthought. And so this is a major flaw of the way in which the states have gone about doing these rate caps. And then there is a lot of ambiguity around applicability to insured patients. So in some states like Karnataka and Telangana have clearly decided that these rate caps would not be insured patients cannot avail of them. Now, the problem with this, of course, we have pointed it out numerous times, both to the state governments as well as in some of our filings to the, our representations to the ministry, central government, and also in the Supreme Court. But I thought it would be interesting to summarize a little bit the arguments from the side of insurance companies. So really this slide is more is summarizing some of the arguments that have been put forward by the GIC, which is the General Insurance Council. And these are some of the allegations that they have made against private hospitals during COVID. So they have alleged that there has been arbitrary overcharging and profiteering by the private hospitals, and there have been inconsistencies in billing, of course, lack of transparency, uniformity, whereby they have said that patients have been charged on a much higher schedule of charges than the uninsured patients. So these are the insured patients. And obviously they claim that the pricing is pricing is discriminatory. But the GIC also interestingly notes that because many of the patients have a limited insurance cover, it is not often enough to take them through the entire treatment. And also due to the fact that they are being charged at billed at exorbitant rates, so that results in the patient actually being uninsured for a good period of time during the treatment, and then obviously incurring substantial out-of-pocket expenditure. So these are just yeah. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the state's attempts have been to, once they have brought these policies, what are their attempts really been to implement and enforce? Because without adequate implementation and enforcement, those orders, as good as they may look on paper, will just remain completely in, they will not be successful. And of course, the one of the variables that determines the success of any of these states' policies is really the state's commitment to implementing the policy. So there has to be, for example, full transparency in terms of the number of subsidized beds available in each private hospital and the occupancy of those beds in real time. This is just a very basic requirement to be able to implement this policy, which the Delhi government has completely failed on doing. And also to create public awareness so that when patients actually go for admission, they should be aware that there is even this, this is an option that they can avail. Because often this will be this will be utilized by the private hospitals to push them into the paid beds. Yeah. Then the other point is about enforcement, and even here there is a lot of variation. We have seen states that have completely refused to enforce the order and create any kind of mechanism, whether it's a grievance redressal mechanism or actively taking steps towards monitoring the implementation and compliance of private hospitals. But recently there have been some positive examples from some states, and we've seen particularly in cities like Hyderabad and Bombay and in Bangalore, of states setting up commissions, often with the involvement of IAS officers, to proactively monitor and audit the bills, and then take action take action against the hospitals if needed. And similarly, recently Telangana has actually come out with an order just a few, I think, days back, that has asked all the private hospitals, because they had received more than 1,000 complaints from patients, for mandatory itemized billing, because there was a complaint that the hospitals were not providing adequate details in the bill. So this is just really coming to the last bit of my presentation. It really presents a few suggestions for what how we could move from where we are right now, which is during in an emergency situation where certain kind of emergency laws have been activated, like the Disaster Management Act, and how we could move that towards something that is a more systematic mechanism of regulating the private hospitals. So I think what we've learned very clearly from the pandemic, that it is possible to regulate, and it is possible to bring about caps on treatment charges if there is political will, because we have never seen this happen on such a large scale. There at the moment, I think it's more than about 12 states have done this. And there's also an increased consciousness in the public. This, of course, has come about due to anxieties related to the pandemic, as well as financial hardships that people have been going through. But that has actually worked to sensitize the public towards some of these overcharging practices. And now I think there's a lot more public pressure to continue this kind of a regulation. So what we really need is regulatory reforms that carry forward into the long term. And as some of the orders that I was mentioning under these emergency laws expire, we need watertight legislations to kind of take over, which states must start moving towards now, because they might take some time to implement. We do have what is called the Central Government's Clinical Establishment Act, of 2010, which is really meant to regulate, and it's meant for regulation and registration of clinical establishments with a view to prescribing minimum standards of facilities and services. And this has been adopted by more than 11 states and 5 union territories. However, sadly, till date, and it's been 10 years, no minimum standards have been notified yet. Then, in addition to this, there are states that have decided to implement their own version of Clinical Establishments Acts. But unfortunately, we don't really have any example other than West Bengal, which has actually attempted to put in a clause for rate regulation in the Act. We also need, of course, a renewed focus on public health strengthening. Amit spoke about this quite a lot. And all aspects of it, not just infrastructure, but equipment, manpower, so forth. And this is needed, of course, to overcome the traditional neglect and underfunding of the public health system. But hand in hand with this would actually be to, to not pursue this tendency, which appears to be very strong at the moment, towards increasing privatization. So this really has to be curbed. Even during the early days of the pandemic, we saw that the Niti Aayog was still pursuing and pushing policies whereby, government hospitals would be given over for running to the private sector, and all kinds of other viability gap funding schemes, etc., being proposed. And this really is not something that makes rational sense based on our observations of what has happened and what has taken place. So I think we really need to learn and pay attention to what has happened during the pandemic and learn from it. An important element is also going to be to check the undue influence of the industry lobbies. This includes people who are at very high levels of, who sit on various committees at high levels in the government from the private sector. For example, there is a high-level group on health sector, which is under the 15th Finance Commission, which has, big corporate leaders like Dr. Devi Shetty and Dr. Naresh Trehan and other people, which does not seem to have really fulfilled a TOR that it was even given last year, which was to really look into the regulatory framework for the private sector. So that committee, which had individuals with deep conflicts of interest, did not fulfill its TOR. And the last suggestion that I would have, and obviously these are not comprehensive, but this is something that I wanted to propose, is that we actually need an alternative people-led movement. And this need not be just the traditional civil society, but it is actually emerging as a people-led movement, which has patients, it has all kinds of actors, it even has healthcare professionals, it has a range of people who have been involved in working towards helping people and pushing back and for more regulation, to not just, I think, pursue this agenda, the positive agenda, but also to unfortunately stand in while governments refuse to fulfill their obligations towards patients and just want to stick around as observers. So until those state governments and the central government takes on that role of in the meantime, I think what will be needed is that we really do need a people-led movement to stand in. So that's where I'm going to end.
So thanks for a very enlightening presentation. So over to the next round of next stage of this, which is Q&A. Therefore, colleagues, any साथियों आपसे कुछ सवाल हो दोनों प्रस्तुतकर्ता के लिए. चलो जब तक people are thinking this through, any some of the things, so what are some of the legal barriers to regulation of private healthcare sector in India as of now? What do you think? both, either of the two speakers or both?
Honestly speaking, in law we have sufficient. Like in law, mother of all laws is Constitution of India. Constitution of India is replete with the saying that you need to do justice with the people in terms of social justice, economical justice, political justice. And social justice is about equality, and equality is about at least being treated when you are ill. So Constitution says that you are to be treated. As Malini talked about Clinical Establishment Act. Now the Clinical Establishment Act is very good, but there is a technicality. This health is a state subject. So Parliament cannot make a law which is binding on the states. So Parliament has made a law, Clinical Establishment Act, which has fairly good provisions, but this act won't be applicable to the states unless they adopt this act. So as Malini told us that there are 11 states and 5 UTs which have accepted it. States like Andhra Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, they have accepted this Clinical Establishment Act, and it has a lot of provisions which can still be used. Like it defines clinical establishment even of a single doctor who is practicing. Section 11 says that no one shall run a clinical establishment until it is registered, and registration is done by district registration authority, that is headed by district collector and chief medical officer. And the regulations are to be made, the conditions to be followed, the conditions of registration, section 12, they are to be prescribed by the state government. As Malini said, as I also believe, that state government can prescribe a lot of things, that in the condition of registration. अब इस बात को समझिए, बिना रजिस्ट्रेशन के एक सिंगल डॉक्टर प्रैक्टिस नहीं कर सकता, ठीक है? एवरीवन नीड्स रजिस्ट्रेशन, एंड रजिस्ट्रेशन की जो कंडीशंस हैं, दैट स्टेट गवर्नमेंट इज फ्री टू डिसाइड. State government can impose conditions like you treat people for free. Those conditions exist even today. You treat people for free, 25%, 30% people, first thing. Second thing is that you can fix the price. न्यूरो सर्जरी के लिए आप एक प्राइस फिक्स कर दीजिए, कार्डियोवास्कुलर सर्जरी के लिए प्राइस फिक्स कर दीजिए. सो फॉर रेगुलेशन देयर इज इनफ स्कोप. All we need is political will, and as Malini said, we also need people's movement. लोगों के पास डिमांड है कि भाई ऐसा कुछ हो जाए, बट उस डिमांड को चैनलाइज नहीं कर पा रहे हम. क्लिनिकल एस्टेब्लिशमेंट एक्ट है, बाकी इंडिविजुअल पेशेंट के पास बहुत सारे राइट्स हैं, सिविल राइट्स हैं, जैसे कि कंज्यूमर प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट है. सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो जजमेंट है इंडियन मेडिकल एसोसिएशन वर्सेस बीपी सांता 1996 AIR 550, इट सेज कि एनी एस्टेब्लिशमेंट which treats people for free has to be accountable under consumer protection act. अगर मैं प्राइवेट अस्पताल में जाके फ्री में भी इलाज करा रहा हूँ, if I am poor and I come under this category of subsidized treatment, even then I can approach consumer protection. I can approach under consumer protection act if I have some difficulty. तो वीपी सांथा ने सारे प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स को अकाउंटेबल बनाया, और वी हैव सम क्रिमिनल लॉ रेमेडीज एज वेल. अगर आपको कोई ग्रीवियस हर्ट हो जाए, someone dies in the process, someone dies because of the rashness, negligence, then for grievous hurt, like for loss of sight, for loss of limb, you have section 338 which punishes up to 2 years. Then if someone dies because of negligence, then you have 3042 death by negligence. And in some rare cases there is a discussion that you can even invoke culpable homicide when negligence is of very high degree. Then this direction can even be approached. So there are multiple remedies, but the problem is this, that these private hospitals are very strong. They have a lot of financial power. As Malini mentioned, lobbying, the ability to get favorable policies. अब lobbying होती कैसे, इसको भी समझ लें हम. अब जैसे कि ऑनरेबल हेल्थ होम मिनिस्टर बीमार हुए, वो मेदांता पहुंच गए. बीजेपी के स्पोक्स पर्सन बीमार हुए, मेदांता पहुंच गए. सीएम चौहान बीमार हुए, चिरायू पहुंच गए. प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स में जाके आप अपना इलाज कराते हो, वो आपको अच्छा ट्रीट कर देते हैं, दे बिकम वेरी फ्रेंडली, दे नो योर वल्नरेबिलिटीज, सडनली दे स्टार्ट हैविंग इन्फ्लुएंस ऑन यू. आपको भी अपनी फैमिली का ट्रीटमेंट कराना है, अपने लोगों का ट्रीटमेंट कराना है, आप उन्हें रिफर करते रहते हो, दे गिव यू सम कंसेशंस. इन कंसेशंस के एवज में दे आस्क यू फॉर फेवरेबल पॉलिसीज. रेगुलेशंस के ब्रीच होते हैं, वो फोन कर देते हैं, जी मत करो, नहीं होता. तो पॉलिटिशियंस, ब्यूरोक्रेट्स गेट प्रेफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट इन दीज प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स, but उसके एवज में these people get relaxation in compliances, they get favorable policies, and all those things happen. तो ये लॉबिंग वहां से आती है। और जो तीसरी चीज बहुत प्रॉब्लमेटिक है, जो प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स का मैनेजमेंट है। प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स के मैनेजमेंट के जो हित हैं, द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ प्राइवेट मेडिकल जो इंस्टीट्यूट्स हैं, उनके जो हित हैं वो जनता के हित से हमेशा अपोजिट हैं। द मैनेजमेंट इज देयर टू अर्न प्रॉफिट, द मैनेजमेंट इज देयर टू मैक्सिमाइज द प्रॉफिट एंड पीपल वांट ट्रीटमेंट, तो वो कभी कोइंसाइड नहीं करते। और जो मैनेजमेंट है, जो डॉक्टर है प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल में, he or she still has sympathy towards the patient कि भाई कैसे भी करके इलाज हो जाए, ठीक, उसकी बात समझ लेते हैं, सुन लेते हैं, वो ट्रीट कर रहे हैं। बट दिस मैनेजमेंट डज नॉट नो द पेशेंट, दे डू नॉट फील फॉर द पेशेंट एंड देन दे टेक ऑल डिसीजंस फॉर द पेशेंट, दैट बिकम्स प्रॉब्लमेटिक। एंड दिस प्राइवेट मैनेजमेंट, दिस मैनेजमेंट ऑफ प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स इज नॉट अकाउंटेबल टू पीपल। तो दिस इज वेरी प्रॉब्लमेटिक। लॉबिंग, इनका मैनेजमेंट और ये नॉन कंप्लायंस जो इन्हें ये छूट मिलती रहती है, these are the three problems in achieving something fruitful. That's all.
Maybe I'll just add to that why it is very important to regulate the private sector. When we compare the public health system and the private health system, they are really operating on two diametrically opposite logics. The public health system really operates within a constitutional paradigm where it is mandated to safeguard and promote the health of the people, whereas the private sector, on the other hand, is operating within a market paradigm where its services are really provided for a cost with the objective of making a profit. So we're currently in a position where we, of course, have public health system that has an accountability mechanism. Definitely that requires more strengthening. But the private health sector has no checks and balances. And the private health sector today is accountable neither to the government nor to the public. And as a result, we're really seeing the patients' rights violations in the private sector reaching epic proportions. So I think I'm just trying to make a case for why we absolutely need a lot more focus on regulating.
Can I ask?
So Vinayak has
questions?
pointed out, हाँ जी, मैं बोल रहा था, हाँ
जी, अमित जी, मैं अमूल्य हूँ, अमूल्य नीति मध्य प्रदेश से। अमित जी,
कैसे हो अमित जी?
ठीक हूँ, नमस्ते। अभी जो देखिए प्राइवेट सेक्टर में जो मतलब चैलेंजेस जो चल रहे हैं स्टेट्स में, एक जो पूरा आयुष्मान भारत PMJY के तहत जो कोविड पेशेंट्स हैं जिनको ट्रीटमेंट्स मिल रही है और उनके पास SMS भी आता है, और प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स डबल चार्जेस कर रहे हैं, मतलब 2 months to 2.5 months पेशेंट्स को हॉस्पिटल में रखा जा रहा है। सारी गाइडलाइंस है 14 डेज की, 2 महीने से ज्यादा पेशेंट को रखना है। और अभी जो सारे डिसीजंस हो रहे हैं वो DA की तो बात अभी हो ही नहीं रही है, अभी बात हो रही है पब्लिक हेल्थ एक्ट की और एपिडेमिक डिजीज एक्ट की। तो जो कलेक्टर्स को जो पावर मिला है प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स को अभी रेगुलेशंस की, कोविड के टाइम पे खासकर, अभी वो पूरे कलेक्टर्स इज द मोस्ट पावरफुल, और पब्लिक हेल्थ एक्ट और एपिडेमिक डिजीज एक्ट के अंतर्गत सारे ट्रीटमेंट्स वो कर रहे हैं, इंक्लूडिंग जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स है जो पब्लिक हॉस्पिटल्स में लगनी चाहिए, वेंटिलेटर्स, प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स में लगाई जा रही है सरकार का पैसा लेकर। तो ये लीगली अभी ये दोनों एपिडेमिक डिजीज एक्ट और पब्लिक हेल्थ एक्ट और इसके इर्द गिर्द हम प्राइवेट सेक्टर के रेगुलेशंस को कैसे देखेंगे? तो बहुत पुराना एक्ट है, कमजोर है, उसमें बहुत सारे रेगुलेशंस भी नहीं है। और रेट्स की अगर हम बात करें तो PMJY वो बोल रहे हैं लागू करना। तो ये स्टेट में ये बहुत कंफ्यूजन चल रहा है हम सभी साथियों के साथ की जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर के रेगुलेशन पे लगे हुए हैं, और ये डिमांड्स स्टेट अभी मतलब एक्सेप्ट भी नहीं कर रहा है, अभी तो इसकी बात ही नहीं कर रहा है। अभी अगर आप कोई स्टेट्स के साथ डायलॉग भी करे तो वो अभी सुनने को तैयार नहीं, उनका तो कहना है कि ये एक्ट के अंतर्गत हम कार्रवाई करते हैं। या
आपने जो बात कही है और जो प्रश्न पूछा है वो बहुत वाजिब है। पहले बात करें आयुष्मान भारत की। आयुष्मान भारत क्या है? आयुष्मान भारत एक सरकार की नीति है जो 2 आयामों पे काम करती है। पहला आयाम है इसका लोकल लेवल पे अच्छे अस्पताल बनाना, वेलनेस सेंटर्स बनाना, ठीक है। दूसरा आयाम है सेकेंडरी और टर्सरी ट्रीटमेंट को गवर्नमेंट फंड करेगी आपके लिए। किसके लिए फंड करेगी? कि भाई जो गरीब हैं, जो 50 करोड़ के आसपास की पॉपुलेशन है जो हमारी, उसका पर फैमिली का 5 लाख का इंश्योरेंस सरकार 1 साल का वहन करेगी। ये है आयुष्मान भारत, आपका 2 आयामों पे है। इसका लक्ष्य है यूनिवर्सल हेल्थ केयर को अचीव करना। आयुष्मान भारत है। कब लॉन्च हुई है? ये 2018 सितंबर में लॉन्च हुई। आज क्या है? आज सितंबर 2020 मान लेते हैं। 2 साल हुए हैं इसको, पैंडेमिक 6 महीने से चल रही है। जब हमारे यहाँ पैंडेमिक शुरू हुई तो आयुष्मान भारत को आए सिर्फ 18 महीने हुए थे। किसी भी पॉलिसी को ग्राउंड पे इम्प्लीमेंट होने में काफी वक्त लगता है, तो ये पॉलिसी ग्राउंड पे थी नहीं, कोई ज्यादा इसके बेनिफिशियरी नहीं थे। इंडिया में हमेशा बेनिफिशियरीज को पॉलिसीज में इंक्लूड करना एक बहुत बड़ा टास्क रहा है। गरीब आदमियों के पास राशन कार्ड नहीं होता, गरीब से गरीब आदमी बीपीएल में नहीं होता, तो कंडीशन यहाँ भी है, लोग यही फेस कर रहे हैं। तो पहली बात, आयुष्मान भारत गवर्नमेंट का इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी ये बहुत डिबेटेबल है, दुनिया में बहुत क्रिटिसिज्म हुआ है। मालिनी मैडम इस पे बोलेंगी, वो बड़े एक्सपर्ट हैं मैडम, तो वो बताएंगी कि इंश्योरेंस में क्या प्रॉब्लम है गवर्नमेंट वाले में। यूएस में बहुत महंगा है पूरा गवर्नमेंट, पूरा ट्रीटमेंट इंसान का। पर आयुष्मान भारत मान लिया बहुत अच्छा है, पर इसकी 2 दिक्कतें हैं। एक तो बहुत नया है, अभी ग्राउंड पे नहीं है, और दूसरी बात, अच्छे से अच्छे दिन में ये 50 करोड़ की जनता को कवर करता है। अपनी जनता कितनी है? 130 करोड़। 10 करोड़ रईस मान लिए, 60 करोड़। 80 करोड़ कहाँ जाएंगे भाई साहब? 70 करोड़ कहाँ जाएंगे? इनका भी तो कुछ करना पड़ेगा, इनको भी तो पैंडेमिक मार रही है। तो आयुष्मान भारत की ये 2 दिक्कतें हैं। अब जो एपिडेमिक एक्ट की आपने बात की है 1897 में, ये हमारे अंग्रेज शासकों ने बनाया था। क्यों बनाया था जी? उस टाइम पुणे मुंबई में काफी एपिडेमिक हो रही थी, तो उस टाइम बना दिया था। इसमें एक सेक्शन 2 है जो कहता है कि स्टेट गवर्नमेंट कैन टेक सच डिसीजंस व्हिच आर नेसेसरी टू कंटेन दिस एपिडेमिक। तो उसमें स्टेट गवर्नमेंट सारे डिसीजंस ले सकती है। वो डिसीजंस इतने ड्रास्टिक हो सकते हैं कि प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल का मैनेजमेंट भी ले ले एपिडेमिक कंट्रोल करने के लिए, वो भी वाजिब है। मतलब बहुत वाइड पावर दे रखे हैं एपिडेमिक एक्ट में, क्योंकि एपिडेमिक को अंग्रेजों की सरकार भी सीरियसली लेती थी, और तब से हमने वो रिपील नहीं किया, नहीं हम भी सीरियसली लेते हैं। कितना लेते हैं भगवान जाने, बट कानून तो कहता है भाई सीरियसली लेना चाहिए। तो जो आपके यूपी में, एमपी में, बुंदेलखंड में, कहीं भी हो, तमिलनाडु में, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के पास पर्याप्त पावर है प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स को रेगुलेट करने का, एटलीस्ट ड्यूरिंग द पैंडेमिक। और अगर प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स इनके इंस्ट्रक्शंस नहीं मानते हैं तो उनका मैनेजमेंट ले लेने का, रिक्विजिशन कर लेने का, सारा कुछ कर लेने का पावर है ड्यूरिंग द पैंडेमिक एटलीस्ट। तो ये मैं कहूंगा, बाकी मालिनी मैम भी कुछ ऐड कर सकती हैं, शी इज एन एक्सपर्ट।
I think you covered most of it. I will just add the same point that, Amulya, obviously the emergency during the pandemic, there are certain acts that have been activated. And the central government has unfettered powers under the Disaster Management Act, and it really can't be palming off its obligations to provide affordable access to COVID treatment to the states. So, but we have to also start preparing for a scenario where these orders that have been issued under disaster management acts or in the various states where they are relying on some of these legislations will start to recede, and they might expire because these are all time bound orders, and we need to be able to replace that with something more systematic. And obviously then in that case we need to start pushing the focus of the states towards clinical establishments acts and bringing those up.
Yes, that's a segue into Inayat's question. So, Inayat, maybe you can ask directly instead of me reading out your question.
Hanji, I was saying that I just have 2 comments. That one, although yes, it is the states that have to implement the act, but the center still has a very major role to play, because the standards as per which the hospitals have to register, the minimum standards have still not been notified by the central government, and even the rules of the act say that the minimum standards have to be notified by the central government. So so the center still has a very major role to play. So we do require a national level campaign to make this act more powerful and implementable and enforceable. The second comment that I had was that yes, we do have laws which allow for people to seek remedies against hospitals when they are aggrieved, but often this whole focus on grievance redressal forgets that forgets the inequities where people from disadvantaged socioeconomic communities may not be able to access these remedies because filing a complaint, seeing it through, it requires resources, it requires a lot of time. Often these our legal system is very slow, and therefore the remedy takes years to come, and not everybody has the kind of resources to be able to follow these things through. And this is why the onus of holding the private sector accountable cannot be placed on the patients and the people, and which is why we require a very proactive as Malini said, watertight legislation that places the onus of regulation on the state rather than just relying on individual grievances.
That's a very fair analysis which has been provided. There are inequities in accessing remedies. जैसे कि आप देखें कि if you go against medical negligence, consumer court भी जाएं, तो you need expert opinion, और वो expert opinion लेना बहुत मुश्किल है. Expert opinion means आप एक डॉक्टर के अगेंस्ट एक डॉक्टर से कुछ लिखवा के ला रहे हो. अब वो भाई कलीग्स हैं, साथ रहते हैं, आज वो किसी के खिलाफ लिखेंगे, कल कोई उनके खिलाफ लिखेगा. So getting the expert opinion is not easy for even the resourceful people. And then there are inequities in accessing justice that is very much there. So I agree with it.
So I think, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with what Inayat has said. And I think that through the vehicle of, firstly, yes, the central government has a very big role to play. In addition to that, even when the state governments adopt the Clinical Establishments Act or decide to come out with their own version of an act, we have to ensure a few things. I mean, at least we need to ensure that the patient rights are made justiciable. Violations of patient rights should attract penalties and punitive measures. And the clinical acts also should be used to regulate rates for procedures and services as per ranges decided by the state governments, offered by identical categories of clinical establishments. This range can, for example, take into account the location, the type, the level of the services being provided, and these rates should be arrived at rationally through the use of standard treatment guidelines, looking into also patient safety and minimum standards that should guide the costing formulas. And then maybe lastly, I'll just add that there should also be penalties that must be created that must create adequate incentives for private entities that break the law.
In some ways, that takes us to the next question. What can be done by the courts and the government to regulate private hospitals? Or as Atul put it, what should be the should be the future health structure and laws of our country, of our nation, to address all of this? And I guess what can citizens, civil society do to accelerate this change?
I think we've talked a fair amount about the laws that need to be brought, because at the moment there really is a very strong regulatory vacuum. The private sector has got used to it, and it is not at all accustomed to being scrutinized or regulated. So really we need to move in the direction of bringing about more regulation. That's very obvious. But you were also saying what could be the role of civil society, and I would say that it would have to be a broader movement. I think this is something that Inayat was alluding to. It has to be something that's larger than just maybe what we have. It has to be a larger force, and it has to be led by people. It can't just be a small number of the traditional actors. It has to be accumulate more support, and I think that maybe this is the right moment for that to happen. The unfortunate circumstances of the pandemic are actually leading us in that direction now. So this would be a right time for us to start that.
Some awareness is needed, like as Malini has said, I agree with it. Awareness is needed, like people are suffering, they suffer. They need to be told that they have rights, and those rights can be realized by coming together, agitating for it. We need a national movement. हेल्थ केयर को मीडिया की हेडलाइन बनना पड़ेगा लंबे वक्त के लिए. वी नीड अ मूवमेंट फॉर इट. दिस प्रॉब्लम हैज बीन हियर फॉर लॉन्ग. वी नीड अ सॉल्यूशन फॉर इट, एंड I think COVID is a blessing in disguise, if I can say it. It's time we address it for once and all. Once it becomes the national headline, our debate will start, and believe me, if a debate starts, the public pressure will be huge and something will come out. That's it.
In some ways, Akshay that takes us to Akshay's question, which Malini sort of responded. Until now, it has sort of been a somewhat technical discussion of with people being slightly.
I had a question.
I think, I think it would also be nice to hear people's comments, even if they're not questions. If people want to just add and that would be nice to hear.
इसके कुछ सुझाव है, अगर कुछ आपके क्षेत्रों में, प्रदेशों में हो रहा है, कुछ चल रहा है, तो वो भी प्लीज शेयर कीजिए, तो ताकि हमें भी पता चले। अंकित, या कंटिन्यू।
My question was with regard to the emergency measures that have been announced around regulating private hospitals. Is there any scope of extending the time frame of these measures even once the pandemic is over? Is there a way to capitalize on some of these measures, for example, around capping the rates of private hospitals? Can we sort of use that as a reference in some way to then ask for greater regulation or ask for sort of expanding the scope just beyond the pandemic as well?
So I can just share that as part of even the matter that is in the Supreme Court, we have actually suggested that the scope of these orders should continue for the entire duration of the pandemic. But in terms of what has actually been implemented, if you examine some of those state level orders, unfortunately they're very narrow. So they are really, for the most part, covering only COVID treatment. Other than the exception being Maharashtra, which has also decided to cap the rates of non-COVID treatments. So other than Maharashtra, all the other states have really limited themselves very narrowly in terms of the scope. And so I think it might be hard. Also, I mean, as we were discussing, they're also coming through powers of certain acts that are active at the moment. So it might be difficult to extend them post the pandemic whenever that ends. But conceptually, I think that we're in a good position to already start the groundwork for bringing in, proper, well thought out legislations, and also pushing for, the implementation of the full implementation of the Clinical Establishments Act, the Central Act, and pushing states that have not adopted that act to either bring in their own legislations and to start that process. I think this is the perfect moment to move into that.
I want to add one thing, like as Malini talked about some cases pending in Supreme Court, like Sachin Jain versus Union of India. Like in India, as we all know, we follow common law legal system. In common law legal system, a judgment comes, unless it is overruled, it is followed. Like if a 3-judge bench judgment comes, then 3-judge bench or a bench below of that strength has to follow that judgment. And it's a Supreme Court judgment, everyone will have to follow. So if we are able to get some price capping, then in future, if some writ petition is filed for price capping even in the peace time, then this judgment, its reasoning can become basis of that future judgment. So if we get a favorable judgment on price capping in Sachin Jain, which I hope we will get, then this reasoning can be used even in the peace time. It can be argued. There will be some precedent to be relied upon. So on judicial side, if we can get some order in Sachin Jain, hopefully, then it will be very helpful for getting a judicial recourse in future. Thank you.
So colleagues, any other questions or comments? So I guess before my Wi-Fi died again, what I was trying to ask was, how does one, so this has to be, as you have been saying, it has to be a political issue. Political will has to be garnered. Yes, citizens have to be mobilized, but how does one do that without it becoming too technical on one level, being too ideological on the other? How does one find the right balance, and how does one actually do that in practice?
So I think that a lot of the issues that we have talked about, even when we were looking at some of the nitty-gritties of, some of the orders of the different states, these are actually things that are very accessible. I feel like these are not difficult to for regular the public to understand. These are quite basic issues. I think the onus is on being able to communicate some of these issues and the need for regulation And I think that there needs to be maybe more of a focus on that. But I mean, I'd also be happy to hear suggestions from any of the people who are listening to us right now, if there are any ideas for how they feel this can be translated and communicated more easily to people.
I will add only one thing, that gossip is mother of law. So we need to start discussing it. Everyone in present time has social media. You have a Facebook account, Twitter account. Talk about these things. Discuss about these things. Whenever you meet people, discuss about these things. There is a famous saying which says that all men must die. I will add one more thing. All men must get ill at some point of time. And when you are ill, you need treatment, and there is nothing there to provide you treatment at affordable prices. Everyone is facing this problem. Discuss it, discuss it, discuss it, discuss it until it becomes a national issue, until it becomes headline, until some anchor starts screaming saying that nation wants to know why people are not being treated. We need to do it.
I think the larger issue that I can see is grappling with the massive influence of the hospital associations and the industry lobbies. And that's something that I don't have a very clear answer to, because it's something that is challenging for everybody, even people who've been part of civil society for decades. So that's something that, probably we have to be a little bit smarter about. That's not very easy.
I will say to that only one thing: sunlight is the best disinfectant. This lobbying thing happens in five-star hotels. Bureaucrats meet, politicians meet, these hospital people meet, these big doctors meet, and they decide policies. Once things go in public domain, people know that they are being cheated. There will be a voice against it. The idea is to bring the sunlight. Once sunlight is here, once things are open in public, people are aware, discussions are happening, they won't be able to do it. No one can survive against public sentiment. This is what I say.
And anyone with a burning last question or comment? Otherwise, I guess that's in a lot of ways. Thanks for your suggestions. Thanks for this very
Rima,
valuable discussion. Yeah.
and Rima had a comment, and she had spoken about this in when she was a guest in this
Okay.
seminar webinar, that there should be a publicly accessible repository of bills, so then we can access these cases and take those up, and create analysis and analyze these bills on our own, if not patients themselves. So that can be a good concrete demand from our side if we are building this kind of a campaign.
Yeah, so Miley was asking how could we possibly do it. I think, since there are also people as part of this campaign, probably across the country or hopefully across the country, I think there has to be a concerted effort to actually collect more detailed bills. For that, you have to first find out and let people know that they need to ask for those bills. And I think if you put those together in a publicly accessible place, maybe anonymized, but it would help people, one, in analyzing these bills, and two is for, like Amit was saying, for people to file cases, know what are the problems with these bills. A public repository would be a huge help. I feel it's a step towards finding out also the same thing being charged so differently in different places. I mean, who's going to host that public repository? I don't know. I mean, maybe Oxfam can do it.
Ma'am, I understand your point. What you are trying to say, you are basically trying to say that whatever is happening shall be in the public light. And whenever things come in public light, there is a better way to redress them. I appreciate that. But I also understand what Manli ma'am was trying to say. She was trying to say that, like, how is it going to happen? So I think that, like, rather than relying entirely on the government, there shall be some association of civil society and government. And even in private hospitals, we can have an office of, like, say, patient help or something of that sort, some office which sits there. Someone has a grievance, which obviously a lot of people have. They can walk in, and the person can make them aware that these are your rules. In the office we can have rules hanging that these are your rights, you can demand your bills, you can demand the details. So in this manner, something can be worked out. I'm not saying that my solution is perfect, but I understand what you are trying to say, and it's very necessary. All things which we
No,
doubt,
I'm not
which we,
talking about anyone. not about anyone organizing. I was just saying that, if there is a publicly accessible website kind of place where people can upload their bills if they want to. So, I mean, well, somebody will have to pay for that, maintaining that website, of course. Maybe Oxfam can pay for it, for maintaining that website.
Yeah, that
so, I mean,
can be taken. Initiative can be taken.
Yeah, because that's a doable thing that, people across the country could actually upload their bills and with their, contacts, so that people can get in touch in case they have to take up that issue. And you also get a comparison of, bills, because this is now being done by single people. Like in Delhi, there is Inayat and Malini, who are having to deal with all the patients who come with billing problems. It's physically impossible for one or two people to actually deal with such a large number of patients and billing problems and all of those things. Maybe, we could actually have a place where people could actually upload these things, and at least these will be publicly available then. But like I said, somebody will have to host. Oxfam could maybe host it. That's all. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Angela, what do you think about this suggestion?
So honestly, we were initially considering having some sort of portal for grievances, complaints, or otherwise issues of patients. The challenge that we have is doing the portal is the easy bit. The question is how do you steer people towards a portal of this nature? Because its value is only if there is enough people who are willing and ready to upload, and they will upload when there is they get something out of it, for the lack of a better word, to put it crudely. On the other hand, there has to be enough people looking at it for it to be worthwhile. Again, having a website with say 20 patients bills isn't going to take us very far with as far as national policy reform is concerned.
20 is an understatement. If we go by Twitter.
So therefore, where would the question in practice what you're proposing is logical. The challenge is getting patients to submit it and enough people to actually engage with it in the long run. Amit, you sound like you want to say something.
Yeah, I want to say something here. So what we can do, we can make a portal, like as you have seen, NHRC का अपना portal है, SHRC का अपना portal है, वहाँ जाओ, नाम पता लिखो, थोड़ी सी problem लिखो 200 words में, and if they find it genuine, they reach out to you and something happens. So we can do on Oxfam portal also, एक portal बना देते हैं. Complain आए, आप अपने 5-6 lawyers रख लो, lawyers who are public spirited, जितनी complaints हैं genuine लगे, आप उन्हें transfer कर दो, they can seek out, अगर कोई dispute है तो they can contact the concerned person, they can ask him भाई national dispute redressal जाना है, कहाँ जाना है, और उसी time simultaneously Oxfam can send a redressal to the Ministry of Health कि भाई ऐसे दिक्कत हो रही है लोगों को, तो उस बंदे को पर्सनल रिड्रेसल भी मिल जाएगा और एक पब्लिक पॉलिसी में भी काम हो जाएगा कि भाई देखो, this is a pattern, this is not a single case, this is not an aberration, they are doing it as a policy. So I think something on this line can be done. We can try it. Like if it works, good. If it does not work, then good. Something is better than nothing, I think.
Yes, and it can be publicized on social media using Twitter. A lot of people are uploading their bills on Twitter. Actually, we can guide them to this particular portal.
So in principle, let's see how this would work. In principle, this was something that we were thinking about from day one. The challenge for us was simultaneously establishing the case flow and sustaining it in the long run, because it will take a while for people to get into the habit of using it. And but that's an operational challenge rather than an in principle challenge. Nothing that can't be overcome if we possibly have a follow-up discussion to this.
motivating people to come forward. You know, a lot of times people are afraid of private hospitals, like Malini was saying. You know, they have so much influence. It is well known in the public domain that they have a lot of influence and they often get away with things. So I think we also, I mean, I'm wondering if it would be, you know, good to have sort of you know, a parcha or a primer that talks about, you know, what to do in case, you know, you are facing backlash. What is the possibility of the backlash that you can have, and what would taking up a complaint entail, because often people don't want to get stuck in this. And I think you know, it's a good idea if the portal itself would have a few lawyers who would have to take it up, so that people wouldn't have to do the running around. Yeah.
But Inayat, we have enough cases on of people just uploading stuff on Twitter and not really expecting an action per se from any person, but they believe that it's public domain. What about something like that?
He's saying there are
I said
already
we have a
cases
lot of
that
cases of people.
I still think it's a little bit limited, you know. I mean, every time we try to take stock of how many people have come forward, we realize that it's actually very few. So I mean, yes, like there are people who are coming out and putting on Twitter, but I think that there are also many people who are not doing it. So we need to figure out how to also tap into those people, because ultimately, you know, like somebody else was also saying, we need to show that you know, there is a great number of people who are suffering these challenges. So I think we definitely need to look at, you know, people who are not coming forth, why are they not coming forth, and how can they be motivated. And again, Twitter is also a very small community, right? Not everybody gets onto Twitter.
From Twitter, it is picked up by media.
I think it's also, you know, quite difficult to resolve even a single case. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of effort, and often during that process, also, the patient or the family has a lot of apprehensions at each step. So I think that while it's a really good idea in terms of increasing transparency of billing, particularly if you can link it to specific hospitals, I think that there would necessarily be a requirement to firstly analyze the bills. So there would that would have to be there, and secondly, also commitment to helping the family in case they wanted to take it forward. So it couldn't, you know, be as simple as just asking people to put their bills up, because we see a lot of that already on Twitter. But to really understand the context of the bill, you have to spend a lot of time speaking with the family, as you know, Rama, yourself, that it's not usually a very simple picture. It becomes very complicated if you figure out, you know, the bill, and the bill also can change depending on what the date of that bill is, whether it's a final bill or whether it's a provisional bill at a particular stage of hospitalization. So I think it's a little complicated, but it's something that I think maybe we should discuss further and think about a little bit more about how it can be done.
Last thing to add, like I agree whatever has been said here, that individual versus private hospital is very problematic. There is no equal footing between the two opponents. Once the individual knows that there are organizations supporting him or her claim, then I think the individuals will come out. Those individuals think that if they go and complain somewhere, these private players will come against them because they are very powerful. If some organization starts working for these people, they will feel encouraged, they will feel empowered, and they will speak up. And once people start speaking up, then the movement will come.
So I guess some tangible action for follow up as a result of this webinar, and not just a theoretical discussion of the issues. And in the meantime, I guess that's as good a closing as any from Amit, in terms of we need to come together to ensure that this is the we create that level playing field between patients and the private hospitals, so that their rights are respected and protected. Thanks from all of us, and looking forward to taking some of this discussion offline. And also thanks to the panelists who listened in, and see you next time in the next episode of the series.